What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the FF Ballbusters podcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Eric. That's my co host, Will. And today we are diving back into another 2024 rookie mock draft. This is our post free agency edition, so we have some changes, some situations have changed. So hopefully we can get kind of a fresh mock for you guys out today. But real quickly, before we do that, Will, do you have anything to say to the people?
Absolutely. Thank you guys for all the support you've been giving to the channel. And with that being said, make sure you guys do all that great YouTube stuff, like hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you know when we drop all of our latest videos. If you're a first-time viewer, you've been here at the channel, and you just haven't hit that subscribe button, you just need a reminder, this is it right here. Hit that subscribe button. And with that being said, let's get into it.
Absolutely. I'm excited for this one to give you guys all the context that you need to fully understand the mock. This is going to be a two-rounder. It's going to be half PPR, Superflex, half point tight end premium, and in a start 10 format. And obviously, we already talked about it, 2024 rookie mock. We also both took into account projected draft capital, but not projected landing spot. So hopefully that gives you all the information that you need to fully understand where we're coming from here. We hope you guys enjoy. I think the last mock draft that Will and I did, Will, you had the 101. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to start us off today.
Absolutely.
And it's not going to change from what we've been doing for months now. It's still going to be the same pick, but with a little bit more explanation provided. It's going to be Caleb Williams here at the 101. So let me set that in. Boom, Caleb Williams. At least in the past, even though he's been our 101, like I said, for months, I feel like there was at least a conversation to be had, some questions that I could entertain about whether Marvin Harrison Jr. deserved it, about whether another quarterback deserved it, and stuff like that. But as we've gotten further and further on in the process, and especially with what Chicago just did in free agency, adding Keenan Allen, potentially making it the best offensive situation that the number one overall pick has ever walked into, or at least in the recent future, I don't think there's any question anymore. Marvin Harrison Jr. is, there's question marks about whether he's even the wide receiver one. Malik Neighbors is in that conversation. Drake May, Jaden Daniels have been talked about as maybe not quite as great as they've been hyped up to be. Caleb Williams seems to be that steady guy at the top of the list.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I just had to remind myself the other day, he's not walking into a true first overall, pick situation because this is the Carolina Panthers pick that they traded away. So this is a result of their season more so than the Bears. So in terms of
Yeah.
situation, like you said, it's a lot more optimistic than a lot of people would give credit for Caleb Williams walking into the Chicago Bears locker room. So I like that pick, the 101, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. So who do you have for us at the 102?
At the 102, again, like you said, things aren't changing up too much. It's going to be Marvin Harrison at this point. He's going to most likely go within those top four picks in this draft in terms of just draft capital. But no matter what situation I feel like he lands in, he's going to be in a pretty good spot, and he should end up being able to at least make something happen for himself. He's a great prospect. He's been a great prospect, and I think, all we're looking now is to see what team he lands on at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think this is really where the draft starts in a lot of leagues. The top two seem to have been solidified for quite some time. And I'm going to go a different direction than I think we've been going in a lot of mocks as of late. I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here all the way up at the 103. We've been talking about the fact that him and Marvin Harrison Jr. kind of deserve to be in that same tier for a while now. But I haven't really been drafting like it. Like if they belong in the same tier, then why are we taking the quarterbacks ahead? This is a situation where I absolutely can entertain the argument that the quarterbacks deserve to go ahead of Malik Neighbors in a super flex format. But I absolutely love what I've seen from him throughout my look into his analytics, my look through his film. I've just been getting higher and higher and higher on Malik Neighbors. And so I feel like from a floor standpoint, I can safely say that he has a better chance to not bust than the two quarterbacks, even though their upside in the Superflex league might be a little bit higher.
No, I absolutely agree with that. I think he's going to plug into any NFL situation and immediately contribute. Wide receivers last for a long time. And like you said, with the quarterbacks, at least with this year, longevity is a little bit of a question, I feel like. But with that being said, rolling into the number 4 pick, I'm going with Jaden Daniels here. I like him a little bit better than Drake May. There's been a ton of back and forth, a ton of discourse between these two guys. So if you have Drake May above Jaden Daniels, I'm not mad at you for it. But at the end of the day, me personally, I like Jaden Daniels. I like the rushing floor that he provides. It almost provides a blanket in which he can be good in fantasy, but not great in real life, which it may take some time for
Very
Jaden
true.
Daniels to catch on. But at the same time, in terms of draft capital, it's looking like he's going to go top 5 as well. Most likely at the number 2 spot, hopefully, Commanders fans. But we'll see how that ends up going up. But I like Jaden Daniels right here at the 104. I think he's going to end up at least being a guy that can provide very well in fantasy.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the pick and with the explanation. I think that was fantastic. But I will take the guy that you passed on. I will take Drake May. Um, I've heard some interesting kind of points of view on him as of late. Obviously, he was thought of very highly early on in the draft process. There was a lot of question marks about whether he should be labeled a QB1, and now that people have gotten more and more into the film and stuff like that, they see that there are uh, some drawbacks, some hesitation in terms of whether he's that surefire prospect. And one comparison that I saw recently that I really like is Jordan Love, where like coming out of college, he has all the tools, he has all the traits, and could develop into something that could be great, but probably needs those years to sit behind a vet and learn and get used to that speed of the NFL compared to UNC, which is not really that pro style offense. Um, and so if he gets that, I think he's got a chance to be a really high end superflex asset. But if he just gets thrown into the fire right away, there's a pretty good chance that, he could end up kind of flaming out.
Nah, I absolutely agree. I feel like out of everyone, which is weird, in terms of fantasy, I feel like he is the biggest boomer bust out of these three quarterbacks. But he does have all the tools. It's just if he can put it together and if NFL team can use him, I guess, to his fullest ability. So I do like him right there, that spot. And moving to the next pick, I'm gonna go with Rome Odunze right here. He's just the guy who I feel like the combine kind of helps solidify his status as a first round draft pick for sure. It probably is a high one as well. People are looking at him as be top 10 in terms of draft capital. I kind of agree with that as well. I think he's a guy who's going to step into an NFL offense and immediately contribute. And, in terms of just the three guys up here with Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, they're kind of up there in that one, S tier. But then I feel like Rome Odunze is right below them in that A tier, maybe a step down, maybe a half step to some people. Some people put Odunze a little bit closer to Neighbors, but I do agree that Rome Odunze is going to be a great prospect in the NFL, and the combine kind of helped solidify that for me.
No, absolutely. And I do think we've kind of had this back and forth about whether it should be a Dunze or Bowers in this position.
Hmm.
But I think considering the combine and considering the projected draft capital of a Dunze, it's hard not to take him here. Um, at one point, Bowers was also kind of a lock to be in that top 10, but now I've seen a lot of mocks where he falls outside of it.
Hmm.
Talking him up because that is who I'm going to take here at the 107. I'm not scared about Bowers at all. I think he's still probably the best tight end prospect that we've seen maybe ever, at least in the near future or in the recent past. What am I
Hmm.
talking about?
There you go.
In the recent past. Um, and also something that we haven't really touched on as much is just how impressive it is for him to have put up those historic numbers at a school like Georgia, who I think they've only had 1,000-yard receiver in the past like 20 years. Like AJ
Jeez.
Green didn't hit that number. George Pickens didn't hit that number. They've had a ton of talented receivers and stuff like that, including wide receivers and tight ends. And Bowers being able to hit those numbers consistently, starting from like freshman year to be able to be in that upper echelon is wild. So especially in this half point tight end premium format, I would love to be able to get Bowers at the 107.
Absolutely. I love that pick right there. And looking at the 108, I'm going back to the wide receiver room. I'm going with Brian Thomas here. I feel like, there's a couple guys I went back and forth with at this spot, but I really like Brian Thomas, especially after the combine. He really did
Yeah.
impress me, especially with the speed that he showed. His, contested catch ability that he showed in college is just, off the charts in terms of just him as a talent. So I feel like he's another guy who could step in and immediately make an impact. I think he also solidified the fact he's going to be a first round pick, maybe first half of the first round, most likely a little bit outside of that first half, but even still, that's gonna be great draft capital for Brian Thomas. So I really like him in this spot.
Yeah, I think top 20 at this point is a lock for
Yeah.
for BTJ. I'll ask, did you consider JJ McCarthy there at all, or was that
Yeah,
straight up?
he's the guy I was
Okay.
going back and forth with for this one right here.
Yeah, because that's who I'm going to take here. And I had, when I was putting together my list for the video, I was having a hard time between these two guys. I think I do lean McCarthy in this situation. If the rumors are true about how highly he's regarded by the NFL, and it could be a smokescreen, people trying to get Drake May to fall or something like that. We've
Hmm.
seen those type of strategies in the past. But I do think there's some truth to it, and I do think that he goes within the top 10. And if that is the case, it'd be pretty hard to pass on him here in what's the back half of the first round of this mock draft. Obviously, there's still lots of question marks just because of lack of volume in that Michigan passing offense. But he's been passing, or he's been checking a lot of the boxes after the season has ended in the eyes of a lot of the analytics community and clearly by the NFL. So I'm happy to take him here.
Absolutely agree. He's someone who's kind of slowly been going up my draft boards too, just because of all the positive talk around him. But hopefully, like you said, it's not just a smokescreen.
Right.
Taking a look at the 110, I'm gonna go with Adonai Mitchell here. I haven't given up on the guy yet. I know, in terms of production, in terms of college production, a lot of people don't look at Adonai Mitchell as highly as they did throughout the season while that was going on, and even into the early off season. But I'm still pretty high on him. I feel like his talents and his usage at Texas were kind of weird in terms of the fact that he thrives on downfield plays, but Texas, in terms of quarterback play, they kind of struggled with that. So
Yeah.
it didn't really get to show and shine on the things he was really good at. And I feel like in the combine, he helped solidify that, he is at the very least a highly athletic prospect and pretty refined too. But when it comes to speed, like I think he ran what, a 4.34, I believe, or somewhere around that range. And that was incredibly impressive for me, especially at 6'4". He's just a guy who's got the frame and hopefully is able to put everything else together once he gets to that next step.
Yeah, and this is a guy that we've talked about quite a bit recently. He's moving up a little bit on my draft boards as well. I've altered my rankings some. Yeah, his combine was great because, especially for me, he weighed in at a reasonable weight.
Hmm.
He wasn't in that super questionable BMI anymore, and he was able to perform athletically at that weight. So that was good to see. And then, similar to what I talked about with Bowers, I was looking into the history of Georgia receivers where Adonai spent his first 2 years, and it's just a plethora of really talented guys that never really got their chance to shine, let alone, Adonai getting injured for almost all of his sophomore year. Then he transfers to Texas, where Quinn Ewers isn't the quarterback that we expected him to be, and really held both of those guys back, him and Worthy, in my
Hmm.
opinion. So there's a lot of untapped potential there, and I like that pick at the 110. At the 111, I think I'm going to go with another wide receiver here. He's a little bit lower on Sleeper's list, apparently. Where is he? There he is, Lad McConkey. He's another guy that's been gaining a lot of steam as of late, and another Georgia receiver.
Hmm.
Funny enough, another guy that doesn't have the volume stats, doesn't have like the box score stats, but on a per route and on a per target basis, he's fantastic in terms of yards per route run, first downs per target, first downs per reception. Really eye-opening stats, really important stats at the wide receiver position. He excels in those areas. I think he also took the combine by storm. Really looked much better athletically than I expected him to. And it seems like the NFL is also understanding what he's capable of. I've seen plenty of first-round buzz around his name as well, and if he can get that, then he's a steal here at the back end of the first.
Absolutely agree with that. And then taking a look at the 112, I'm going to go with the guy who I feel like has kind of become like the forgotten middle child in all of the quarterbacks. I'm going with Michael Penix here. Just because I feel like nothing negative has happened, but nothing entirely positive has really happened for Michael Penix either. So I feel like it is easy to forget about him in the mix of all of this. But he is still the same player we thought he was going to be. And I think he's still going to be one of those guys who gets pretty good draft capital. Now, in terms of where I think he's going to go, I'm assuming in the first round because there's a lot of quarterback needy teams in the NFL now, especially after free agency. I'm not sure what a lot of teams are about to do, but he is still a guy that even if doesn't go in the first round, he could be a day two guy very easily and still be in a spot where he could end up starting for that team. So I think at the back end of the first, that's pretty good capital right there.
Yeah, I like that. This is interesting too because he's another guy that we had kind of talked down for part of the
Hmm.
process, and I also had him right here in the same range as you did. So it's good to see that we're kind of in lockstep there. looking into his analytics, he's one of the best quarterbacks. He is the best quarterback in this draft class in terms of avoiding sacks. And I feel like most of the fantasy community is finally starting to get privy to that, that like avoiding sacks really is the name of the game in terms of bust versus not bust quarterback.
Yeah.
So even if he doesn't have the super high upside as a runner, or as a prolific crazy trait type passer, he can at least carve out a role in the NFL, a la like Tua, where he can be a distributor of the football and still be productive. So I like that a lot.
Agreed.
So that will round out the first round for us. We can go on to the second round. And I think I'm going to take the first running back off the board here. Another guy that killed the combine and hopefully gets the NFL draft capital to back it up. It's going to be Trey Benson.
I like that.
Really explosive, great size speed combo. I liked the big play ability that we saw from him at Florida State. It did seem like his vision, or at least his decision making, was questionable at times, and that kind of led him to be a boom bust runner. He could get stopped behind the line of scrimmage a lot, but also he's going to break off a ton of big plays, and we've seen that mold of running back succeed for fantasy purposes in the NFL. And so, like I said, if he gets the draft capital and gets a good landing spot by one of these teams, hint hint Cowboys, that would be amazing. Then we could really see him take off in terms of fantasy value.
Absolutely agree. I think landing spot's going to be huge, but he does have a very high ceiling in terms of all the other players, so I like that right there. Moving to the 202, I'm going to go with Troy Franklin here. He had a really bad combine. This is a guy who was going in the first round, but I think that, hopefully he is still able to put it together at the next level, but he did not have a good combine. It was pretty disappointing, all things considered. But, that's why, he took a little bit of a ding here. But I still think he is still worth a pick right here. I think he's still a guy that NFL teams will value. He may end up going as a day two guy, but as a wide receiver, that's not the worst thing in the world. But honestly, I haven't heard a whole lot of mocks that have put him out of the first round a whole lot. Have you seen a lot of mocks that have put him out of the first?
I think I've seen him projected as an early day two guy
Yeah.
on like NFL mock draft database. I I've seen a handful of both where he's like at the back end of the first or early to mid second in a lot of mocks that I've been looking at recently.
Yeah, so he could go either, but like I said, that's not the worst thing in the world for a wide receiver. I think that's still extremely good draft capital, and I think he's still a guy who's going to end up making an impact at the NFL level. We just got to get past that combine that he had.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, still a great analytical profile, good college career. I'd be happy with that pick as well. We go to the 2-3. I think I'm going to take another quarterback. I'm going to take. I don't know if is me calling him your guy wrong. I feel
Nah,
like you've
bro, you
been
can call him. That's my guy. I like Bo Nix.
one
Yeah, I
one of
like
your
him.
biggest support. Yeah. Bo Nix. Um, we've seen him mocked to the Broncos a couple times. They're in the middle of the first round recently. We've also seen him fall day two again to the Broncos. They're in that position, kind of in that same range to take him. Really curious to see how the NFL values him in general, because we've seen again these type of smoke screens where guys get propped up as early first rounders, mid first rounders, and then end up, not seeing him until day two.
Shout out Will Levis.
But Bo Nix, exactly. Will Levis is a good example. Um, Bo Nix, he had the accuracy, the completion percentage, the sack avoidance, the athleticism. There's question marks about whether that's kind of phony based on the Oregon offense, just because of how quickly he's getting the ball out and the amount of screens that he's throwing could be pumping up those numbers. But analytically, he looks pretty good. And in a Superflex league with questionable running backs, I think this range is a good spot to take a shot on a guy like him.
Nah, I love that. I think he's going to end up somewhere, like you said, where he could make an impact immediately. Even if he ends up sitting for a little bit, Bo Nix may be one of those guys just takes a little bit to get developed like he did in college, but at the same time, I
Yeah.
feel like he's going to end up making an impact. Taking a look at the next spot, I was between two different players right here. I'm going to take a shot on one. I'm going with Xavier Worthy right here. So obviously, he clocked the fastest 40-yard dash time we've ever seen at the combine, blah, blah, blah. We get it. But I don't think that's the biggest indicator in terms of NFL success, and it really hasn't been, kind of historically. Those guys who have been really fast haven't really panned out a whole lot, especially at the wide receiver position. But I think Xavier Worthy does provide a little bit more than speed in terms of his skill set. I think he's a guy who can win on a lot of routes. I think he's a guy who is physical, but he is very small at the same time, too. So there's a bit of a question mark there as well. But I feel like with the right landing spot, he could make an impact as sort of that deep threat, sort of field stretcher for sure. And he's got the wheels to go along with it. And we've seen guys who were smaller also succeed at the NFL level, looking at like Tank Dell, Devonta Smith in terms of BMI. But I think Xavier Worthy could carve out a role for himself with an NFL team. But at the same time, I'm not super excited about him. That 40-yard dash time doesn't really put the stamp on him that most would think it would. I just sort of liked the player before, and that helps kind of slightly bump him up for me here too. But, this is kind of how I value Xavier Worthy, at least right here in mock drafts.
No, I like it. I had him right around the same range as well, and I like the explanation. I think landing spot is going to be really important for him. It's important for all these guys, but especially somebody who has the talent to potentially be used in a multitude of ways instead of
Hmm.
just being that deep threat. And depending on where he goes, he might be pigeonholed. So I like that explanation. At the 2-5, I think I'm going to go with his Texas teammate. I'm going to take Jonathan Brooks
Nice.
here. Obviously, we haven't seen him perform athletically due to the ACL injury that he suffered near the end of the college season. Or actually, not near the end, maybe midway. I'm forgetting the date that it happened. But all of the reports in terms of his recovery seem like he should be ready to go for training camp. So I'm not too worried about his ability to establish himself on an NFL roster after being drafted. I don't think he's going to miss too much time because of the injury. And I think we can both agree, just film wise, he was probably our favorite running back of the group.
Absolutely agree there. I think film wise, he was the best out of all these guys, but it's tough to put him above guys like Trey Benson who performed and we've seen him on, we saw him at the combine. It's tough to put him
Right.
above him at this point, but I love that spot for him right there. And
Uh,
what's up?
no, I was just going to transition you to the 206.
Oh, all good. So at the 206, I'm looking at Keon Coleman right here. I'm looking at Keon Coleman, a guy who we had in the first round when we first started the process, and he has done nothing but fall since. But
Yeah.
I think that, let's go a little bit easier on Keon Coleman. He's one of the more athletic prospects. He's definitely the most raw prospect in terms of the, highly tiered wide receivers we've got here. But I also think he's a guy who could make things happen at the next level. He's one of those contested catch guys who's really, really good at that. It's sort of his specialty. And in terms of the gauntlet, he had one of the fastest speeds out of the wide receivers through that as well. So his play speed is pretty high as well. So Keon Coleman, you're kind of taking a shot on him here at this point to see what he can do, and landing spot is probably going to be gigantic for this guy. Again, it's going to be for a lot of these guys. But at the same time, he's someone I feel like could make an impact in the next level, especially with the guys we've got left that we're naming afterwards. I feel like we've kind of reached another teardrop in terms of these players, but I think he
Yeah.
is the top of that teardrop.
I I don't disagree. In terms of upside, I think he definitely has that in his bag. But just looking through his analytical profile right now, receiving yards per team pass attempt, yards per route run, first downs per target, contested target percentage, like all of these really key metrics for wide receivers, he just really struggles, man, and it scares me. But I know that the NFL is going to like his body type and his
Hmm.
athletic profile. And so draft capital is also a very, very important metric when it comes to fantasy success. So it's just whether or how you balance those two, really. So I don't mind that here in the middle of the second. Uh,
Absolutely.
at the 2-7, I'm going to take a guy that I don't love necessarily. Their athletic traits, their film, at least in 2023. I'm going to take Blake Corum. And I think that's mainly because I expect him to land on the Chargers and be part of Jim
Hmm.
Harbaugh's system and continue to get tons and tons of volume in what's going to be a run-heavy offense. Um, Obviously, that's a lot of projection, and really, if he does end up on the Chargers, especially if it's in like the second round, he's going to go a lot higher than the middle of the second. Um, but with that in the range of outcomes, I think it's worth taking a shot on a guy that his stock has been falling just based on the injury in 2022 and what that led to him putting on tape in 2023, him not having a great combine. He's sliding a little bit. But if he gets that landing spot, I think he's more than worth it here in the middle of the second.
Yeah, because if he goes to a team that values the run position, the running back position, I think he's going to succeed. He's going to be good.
Yeah,
Taking a look at the next spot, I'm staying with the running backs. I'm gonna go with Marshawn Lloyd, someone else who
I
kind
love
of
it.
impressed me a lot at the combine, and someone whose tape has impressed me as well. He's good at forcing people to miss tackles. He's great in the open field, and those are things that really do translate over to success in fantasy. So I like Marshawn Lloyd at this spot right here. I think he's gonna do some great things at the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't even have anything to add. That's a fantastic pick. He's been a guy that's rising up my draft boards as well. Another guy that's been rising up my draft boards that I might have to scroll for a second to see if I can find him. I'm looking for Ricky Pearsall. There he is. Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida. Really interesting analytical profile. And also, he wasn't quite as eye popping in the key stats as like a Lad McConkey, or obviously the top guys, the Harrisons, Neighbors, or Dunzeys. But his film was fantastic. Like he is a fantastic separator, route runner at all levels of the field. I think that he's really technical in that aspect, and also surprisingly, really good contested catcher, great ball skills and body control. I think he's starting to get noticed by the NFL after what he did at the combine as well. He had a really good performance there. And if he gets that kind of early day two draft capital, he's going to be a steal at this position.
I absolutely agree with that. He's a guy who's definitely going up my draft board as well. He's sort of impressed at sort of everything he's done outside of school. So like he keeps rising outside of it.
Tough to succeed at Florida. Also, it's another school
Yeah,
where a lot of guys go to die.
absolutely. Taking a look at the next pick, I'm gonna go with Xavier Leggett. Uh, but I feel like this is about the highest I go for him. Something that's been weird. I feel like his draft stock's been going up just because people found out he's country, and it's like, oh wow, country guy went to South Carolina. Who would have thought? But yeah, Xavier Leggett. In terms of his combine, he did have a decent combine. I'm not gonna lie to you. He did end up placing pretty well athletically. It's more the production that we're looking at in college that's sort of worrisome. Also, the breakout age sort of worrisome. But at the same time, I feel like he is a guy who is going to end up getting value by NFL teams. He should get decent capital, so he should end up, playing pretty early, making an impact pretty early. It's just a matter of, I don't know. I feel like he's got to go to the right team. And even still, it's tough for me to say he's going to be able to separate at an NFL level or be able to do any of those things. So we're really hoping on that athletic profile coming through more so than his own receiving talent, if that makes sense. But, I feel like at this point in the draft, when you're taking shots on people, I think Xavier Leggett's a good guy to take a shot on right here.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Upside is there,
Hmm.
athleticism and traits are there, production and like you mentioned, breakout age specifically, not so much. But I like the swing. My last pick here at the 211. What am I gonna do? I think I'm gonna go back to wide receiver. I'm gonna take the Michigan boy Roman Wilson.
Mm, I like it.
Um, Another guy that had a great Senior Bowl, really separated himself down there. Him and Lad McConkey and even Ricky Pearsall as well really were the standouts of the group, and seemed to win almost every rep. He had a decent combine as well, and the more that I've kind of dove into his tape, the more I like. Michigan is also a similar school to like Georgia that we've been kind of talking about, where receiving talent never gets featured to their fullest capability. And so their counting stats, their box scores are never going to look as good as maybe they should based on their talent. And so that's something that I've taken into account with his evaluation. But I think the NFL is starting to notice him as well. And I think if he goes early day two, even if he's like an early round three guy, I'm still happy with taking him here at the back of the second.
I absolutely love that pick right there. So I think that's a great spot for him. And then taking a look at the final pick that we're going to make with this mock draft, I'm going to go with the guy who, if we don't put him in this draft, we're going to hear a lot. I'm going to go with Braylon Allen right here at the end of the second round. I'm really trusting in you Wisconsin guys out there who are telling us that, maybe everything there is kind of circumstantial towards, Braylon Allen's production the last 2 years really, that things changed a lot around him and, it's not entirely his fault. Um, but he was one of those guys who didn't really perform at the combine, so we don't really have a whole lot of stuff in terms of more data on him. Do we know when their pro day is? Has it already happened?
I can look it up. It's gonna take me a second, but I don't think we have like a RAS score or anything like that on him yet.
Yeah, so it's tough for me to really say in terms of athleticism what Braylon Allen still is compared to, his breakout year when he was, 19 years old. But at the same time,
17.
or 17, sorry. So at the same time, he has a super great breakout age. He's got good production to go along with that tailed off towards the end, which may be circumstantial. And depending on the landing spot, depending on how he ends up scoring in terms of RAS score, he could shoot up even further up draft boards, depending on how he does. But I think right here, this is a safe place to put him. But Wisconsin fans, you guys have been sounding off in the comments. Let us know what you think about Braylon Allen as well. Keep us up to date with what's going on with him. Were you able to find anything on that side?
So it did already happen. Apparently, he elected not to run the 40. He
Mm,
participated in only position drills and caught passes and stuff like that. But
see.
I haven't seen any of the Twitter buzz on him recently.
See, if you Wisconsin, see y'all what y'all are doing to us. I should take him out of here, but I'm gonna leave him right here at the 212. I'm gonna let it breathe. But yeah, I think that's gonna go ahead and round out our draft right here. So guys, take a good look at this one right here. This is how we kind of value these guys right now. I'm sure things kind of differ between the two of us, between me and Eric, in terms of how these guys landed. But this is kind of the general, I guess, mock draft for how this would all end up falling together for us. So, you got anything for the people for this before we head on out of here?
Just that I would have taken your boy Will Shipley over Braylon Allen, but it is what
Ooh.
it is. I understand.
Oh my God. He had to throw that little bit of gasoline in there at the last second. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. Thank you
Let's get
guys.
out. Let's get out.
Thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure you guys do all that great YouTube stuff I mentioned at the top. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you know when we drop all of our latest videos. Hit that like button. It's absolutely free and it's the best way to get our stuff out there. And comment down below about any of these guys that you feel like you disagree with, any of these picks you feel like you agree with, anyone you feel like we left out that deserves a little bit more love. Let us know down in the comments below. But with that being said, Eric, you got anything else for the people before we get out of here?
Yeah, if y'all could do us a favor and check out some of the links that we have down in the description below, specifically to our Discord. We're growing a great community over there with a bunch of fantastic people talking fantasy, talking dynasty, startups, trades, regular life stuff, all the good things. So if you're interested in any of that, please come join up using the link in the description below. And also, if you could check out the links to our partners. We have Do Numbers over there if you're interested in some cool apparel, hoodies, hats, t-shirts, any sort of merch like that. And also Choice Music Group if you're interested in some really, really cool music. We have links to both of those down below, and we are also closing our outros with some music from Choice Music Group as well. But I think that's all I have. So if you guys stuck with us all the way until the end, as always, we love you. We will catch you in the next video. Peace.
Peace.